So
Rory,
how
you're
do
asking
you,
yourself the wrong question.
I know, well, how do you scale it down when you like so
Because
many different modalities?
you have to ask a different question. You're asking the wrong question.
Oh,
The question you're asking is like, I like all of these therapies.
yeah.
So how do I find the one I like most, in essence?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's not the right question. Welcome to Therapy Checkup, where we dive deep into your mental health practice and see the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm your host, Elliot Connie. What are your best hopes from talking with me?
I'm learning from you. Just learning a lot from you. That's
What
what
would
we,
you like to learn?
well, I am graduating. I'm actually walking in a couple Sundays from my master's program of MFT
Oh,
and
congratulations. Where? What school?
Alliance International University.
Where's that?
It's all over. There's two. I'm in California, so there's one in LA. There's another one in Anaheim, and there's another school I think in San Diego.
Well, congratulations. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so I will be waiting for my associate's number, and then as of September, I will be out there looking for a center, and I will be working for the state of California of getting my hours.
Very cool. All right. So how can I help you along your journey?
I love solution focused therapy, so I've actually joined a few of your trainings. Right now, my niche is couples. I love helping couples and families.
But what would you like to learn specifically? What are you hoping to learn? Or what do you want that learning to do for you?
I'm like a sponge right now, and people that I
I don't
respect.
want you to be a sponge.
Okay, okay, I have been because well, I've been a sponge to people that I look up to because I want to be a really good therapist. That is
There
my
you go. Okay. There. Okay. So I don't want you to be a sponge. I want you to be a visionary.
Oh,
Okay.
I love that better.
When you're in the beginning of your career,
Hmm.
being a sponge means you soak up everything.
Yeah,
But it also means you soak up the toxic bullshit that exists in our field too. It means you soak up the bad habits that other people have. It means you soak up all of the information that's not really useful to you. But
yeah,
when you're a visionary, you learn to discern what do I want to take in and what do I not, because that might not be in line with what I'm envisioning. So I graduated in December of 2006.
oh wow.
I know, 100 years ago. But if I can go back to my graduation, I would tell that version of me to sit down and create a vision for what you want your career to look like and then go do it.
Mm,
What happened for me was I thought, oh, I guess you gotta get a job in an agency, so I'll do that. And I would have stayed at that agency forever, but it got really terrible. My boss was awful and it was not a fun experience. So, all right, I guess I'll open a therapy practice. I wasn't moving with intention. And as a
mm,
consequence, I stayed in certain places longer than I otherwise should have. So I would say become a visionary so you can move with intention and think to yourself, I want to be a great clinician. I
yeah.
want to have my own therapy practice.
Hmm.
I want to write books. I want to do keynote speeches or like whatever the things you want to do is. And then you'll like when you do that, like let's say you said to yourself, like, all right, I want to be the greatest clinician I can be. I want to master solution focused brief therapy. And I'm only saying that because you said you liked it.
Yeah.
Um, I want to publish my work. I want to create a platform where I can speak around the world. Then what happens is when someone comes to you and they're like, hey, Rory, let's go to this training by this person. And you say to yourself, no, because they're not teaching solution focused. And I don't want to soak up everything. I want to soak up everything that moves me along what I'm envisioning. So if they're not teaching solution focused, why would I go? And then you're going to be like, nope, because they don't have books, and I want to be mentored by and follow the people that have books. Or nope, I don't see that person doing keynote presentations all over the world, and that's what I want to do. Like your life is going to look like the people that you follow.
That is
Like
so true. Yeah, I didn't
if
even feel like that.
if you follow a bunch of food influencers and all they review is like pizza places and fast food places, you're going to gain weight. Like because your life is going to look like the people that you follow. So you have to be really intentional with your intent, with your attention, right?
Okay.
It's hard to say those words. Be intentional with your attention, because however you spend your attention is going to be however your life begins to look.
That makes a lot of sense. That really does. And I feel like I'm kind of doing that a little bit because when I was doing my practicum, there was a couple supervisors that was supervising me, and some of them I didn't like how they would talk about their clients. So right there, I was
Right.
like, okay, I would never do that. So I feel like I'm doing that, but the way you broke it down, it makes way more sense.
Yeah, my first supervision experience was not a pleasant one. My very first supervisor was a guy named Otis. And Otis, not only was he my clinical supervisor, but he was my boss in my job. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, this would be easy. Otis, I'm already, around Otis. I already talked to Otis. So I went to him and I was like, hey, man, would you be my clinical supervisor? And he was like, yes. What I didn't realize was Otis didn't like solution focused brief therapy. And one day in supervision, Otis said, can you record? And back then it was all audio. I had
Mm.
this little audio recorder. He said, can you record one of your sessions and let me listen to it? Sure. At the time, I was doing in-home therapy visits. So I went to my client's home, can I record this, blah, blah, blah. And they said, sure. And I did the thing and I played it for Otis. And then Otis spent our next supervision talking to me about how bad solution-focused brief therapy was.
Oh.
Um, and that was the last time I went and had supervision with him. I fired him that day. And I found another clinical supervisor that was more in line with the life I'm trying to create. That
Yeah.
particular clinical supervisor, she had books, she had an international speaking reputation, she had a therapy practice, or at least so I thought. Turns out it was a little bit smaller than I thought, but she was doing kind of the things that I ultimately wanted to be doing. So I was like, let's do this. And she also was a big advocate and believed in solution focused brief therapy. So every choice you make is going to influence what your future looks like. So just be really, really clear about what kind of future you want to create.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it brings me to think about how like I'm trying to narrow it down of the theory that I want to use. I really like solution focus because I love how it uplifts. I like that. It
Right.
doesn't focus on the problem. I do like emotionally focused therapy. And then I do like the Gottman model for couples. So
Rory,
how
you're asking yourself the wrong question
I know, well, how do you scale it down when you like so
because
many different modalities?
you have to ask a different question. You're asking the wrong question.
Oh.
The question you're asking is like, I like all of these therapies.
Yeah.
So how do I find the one I like most, in essence?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the right question. That
Okay.
question will lead to you being confused.
Mm-hmm.
It will lead to you not having clarity about what you're wanting to do.
Right.
Because the truth is, there are over 250 recognized clinical approaches, way more. If I said to you, here's a book with all 250, you're going to find something in every single one of them that you like, and you're
Yeah.
going to find something in every single one of them that you don't.
Yeah.
So if I just ask myself, what do I like? You're going to get 250, you're going to have to parse through so much data. The question that you need to ask yourself is, what can I do for the next 50 years and feel fulfilled?
Mm.
That's the question. And then that's going to give you far fewer things because there's not a whole lot of stuff that you can do and feel fulfilled.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to sit with that question.
That's the question. It is
Yeah.
not what do I like? It's what can I do for the next, what can I do 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, and feel fulfilled?
Okay. And what comes up for me, right? Well, I guess I just got to sit with that question. I got to sit
Yeah,
with
you don't have to answer it right this second, but that's
Yeah,
the question I want you to ask yourself, right? Because, and by the way, you do this all the time, right? Like, do you have any kids?
I do. I have three.
How old is your youngest? I'll pick on your youngest.
He's 26
26. If your 26-year-old called you, where does your 26-year-old live?
in Minnesota.
Okay. If your 26-year-old called you and says, Mom, I'm in tremendous trouble. I just was in a car accident. I'm sick. My legs are broken. I have no idea how I'm going to take care of myself. Can you come stay with me for a bit? Would you do it?
I would, yeah.
What if that meant you had to fly on a red eye from LAX and fly overnight to get to Minnesota? Would you do it?
I would, yes.
Okay. What if the flight was expensive and you had to borrow money from everybody you know to get to Minnesota? Would you borrow the money? Would you do it?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why is because somewhere in your maternal brain, you've decided that taking care of my children is worth the effort and fulfills me,
Mm,
right? So we
okay.
do like if a random person called you and said, "Hey, Rory, you don't know me, but I'd love for you to come to Minnesota and cook meals for me," you'd be like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I'm not doing that." But I would do all of that for him. You know,
Yeah.
I would do all of that for my 26-year-old son. If he called me in the middle of the night, Mom, I'm in a lot of trouble. I got in a car accident and my legs are broken and I don't the hospital won't discharge me because I can't drive home. You'd be like, I'm gonna go take care of him.
Yeah.
Because that to you, you experience that as fulfilling. And once you do that, and I'll tell you why this is so important. Once you can like make that determination, your level of resilience and effort goes up.
Yeah.
Now, if you knew me back in 2006, I was, I was going to say, I was obsessed with solution focused brief therapy. Um, but I'm still obsessed. You would observe that observation differently in 2006. What I was doing in 2006 was I was staying up really late at night reading books about solution focused brief therapy.
Mm,
I just wanted to consume everything about this approach. And the reason why is because it became clear to me that that this fulfilled me. I couldn't have stayed up all night reading about CBT. I
yeah.
couldn't have stayed up all night reading about Adlerian therapy. I couldn't have stayed up all night reading about Jungian therapy or so on and so on. I loved that solution focused brief therapy meant I got to talk to people about what they hoped to achieve.
Yeah.
That's what was the turning point for me. I didn't want to talk to people about the biggest mistakes they'd ever made. I didn't want to talk to people about how horrible the trauma was in their past. I wanted to talk to people about like, what do you still dream about? In spite of your pain, trauma, abandonment, and grief, what do you still find the ability to dream about? And what difference would it make for you if that dream began to come true tomorrow morning? That was like mind blowing to me. And
Yeah.
I wanted to learn everything about doing that. And the thought that I could spend the rest of my career talking to people about their still present dreams in spite of their problems and traumas. And I'm still excited about that.
Yeah.
You probably know, maybe don't, but I'm working on a couple of TV shows. One
Oh,
of them, one of them is being directed by a woman by the name of Tasha Smith. Do you know who Tasha Smith is?
yes, I do.
A couple of weeks ago, we went site locating for one of those TV shows in a place called Camden, New Jersey.
Oh,
Now, I knew of Tasha, but I didn't know her story. Now, she's from Camden, New Jersey, and we were going around Camden, New Jersey. And she said to me, this, like, we went to one, like, as we're driving around Camden, scouting different locations, we eventually pulled up in front of a house that she used to live in. And we were standing out in front of the house, and Tasha is saying, my mother used drugs in this house. She was like, on these steps, I got in this really bad fight. Somebody was picking on my twin sister, and I got in this really bad fight. And she's saying all this stuff. And then she starts telling me about some unbelievable things about her childhood. And I said, Tasha, how did you break free from this and become successful in Hollywood? And she was like, when I was 18, my mom was hooked on drugs, life was falling apart. I went to Hollywood because that's where my dreams were. And I was like, oh my God. But what makes me love that so much, the reason I'm sharing that now is because that's how I treat every single client. The only difference between Tasha and everybody else is not everybody's dreams reside in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Not everybody's dreams reside there. Like some people's dreams are, I want to be a ski bum.
Right.
Um, some people's dream, like I met somebody who they went to South Africa to go on a safari. And I met them while I was on South Africa on a safari. And they said that was 13 years ago. And I was like, you came here to go on a safari and stayed for 13 years? And this person said, yeah, as soon as I got here, I realized this was my dream life.
Oh,
So
wow.
the thought of like, I get to spend the rest of my life, and I don't know if I've ever said this purpose publicly in the way I'm about to say it, but I don't really view my work as like I work with trauma or I work with people with anxiety or I work with depression. I
Yeah.
help people turn their dreams into reality. That's how I view my job.
I
And
love
the only thing that I saw congruent to that was solution focused brief therapy. So I want you to think, what can I spend the next 50 years of my life doing and fulfill me? Because that's going to be the thing you're willing to wake up early for. That's
yeah.
going to be the thing you're willing to go to bed late for. Just like your son, your children are you're willing to go to bed early
Mm-hmm.
and wake up late for them. You're willing to work a second job so that they can take a field trip. You're willing to like nurse them back to health when they got sick. You
Yeah.
probably wouldn't do that for any random person, but you did it for them because somewhere in your maternal brain, that thought became fulfilling. That's how I want you to think of this work.
Okay. No, I love how you just said that because I do. I'm older. So this is a career that I've always wanted. And I'm finally, you know, going through this, going to enter the field as a therapist. So yeah, this is my last career. So I really want to be a good therapist. And I wish I would have done this a long time ago, to be honest.
Mm.
Yeah.
What career were you in first?
Well, a couple of them. My first ones, I owned a salon.
Oh wow, okay.
And I became my client's therapist. So I got certified as a life coach, and I kept, people kept coming to me with, trauma, and I felt like I just couldn't help them. So I'm like, this is my calling, so let me go to school. So I did, and I didn't go to college. So I literally started from the bottom and just went straight into my master's. So I've been in school since 2016.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And congratulations. You're about to walk across the stage in the culmination of all of that.
I'm so excited.
I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, I love my clients. So, yes, the clients I was in for practicum, I was waking up early and going to bed late trying to, find ways to help them because in school they were telling us just be collective, collect a lot of different modalities and see which one you like.
Oh my God, no, don't
No.
say no, that's the worst. Don't do that.
So that's what I've been doing. So yeah, I do understand by being because I like so many. I'm narrowing it down though. So now I'm gonna sit with that question. So yeah.
Oh no. Okay, don't do that. Being collective is
Mm-hmm.
is the best way to not be effective.
I can see that. Definitely
So
see that.
don't do that. Like
Yeah.
if if I gave you the task, because this is the best example that I can use, and I use this often. If I gave you the task, Rory, if I said, I'd like you to become a master chef, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, you have 1 year to complete this. You have 1 year to become a master chef. Tell me which plan sounds like it would get you closer to being a master chef than the other. If you said, great, I want to be a master chef, I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Paris and learn French techniques. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Japan and learn Japanese sushi techniques, 2 weeks in China and learn Chinese cuisine. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Germany and learn how they cook their food. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Moscow and learn how they make their food. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in London, 2 weeks in Johannesburg, 2 weeks in Toronto, 2 weeks in New York City, 2 weeks in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Right? So that's plan number one. Spend 2 weeks in different places and be collective of all of the culinary techniques. Or I'm going to go spend, so Elliot gave me a year. I have 1 year to become a master chef. So I'm going to go to Paris and I'm going to stay there for a year and I'm going to do nothing but study French cuisine.
Yeah.
Which one would you become a master of more quickly?
Spending a year in France and studying French cuisine for a year.
Exactly right. It is
Yeah.
unquestionably the answer. In
Yeah.
fact, Rory, I guarantee you, if I gave you a year, we'll call it 2 years, and I said, all right, I want you to go to Switzerland and learn how to make the food that they make. I want you to go to Japan. I want you to go to England. I want you to go to Scotland. I want you to go to Russia. It wouldn't take you very long to get confused. You'd be like, wait a minute, what do they do with Swedish meatballs versus the meatballs in Italy? How do they make the noodles differently in Asia versus in Italian cuisine? Oh my God, what's that thing? How do they season differently in Brazil versus Argentina? You get confused.
Yeah, you
And
would. Yeah.
and therapists are confused
Hmm.
because they're doing exactly that. You're like, all right, I'm going to go spend 2 weeks with Sigmund Freud. I'm going to spend 2 weeks with Carl Jung, 2 weeks with Alfred Adler, 2 weeks with Milton Erickson, 2 weeks and it's like, stop it.
Yeah,
If you
it gets
if you
very
want to become a master, go spend a year with Carl Jung, or as you said, emotionally focused therapy, or Elliott Connie and solution focused brief therapy. Like, you really have to master this. And then once you master it, perhaps you might think, oh, I want to master something else. Or more often is the case, you think, um, this mastery is actually a lifelong pursuit.
yeah, yeah. That
Like
makes a
I'm
lot
still
of
trying to get
sense.
better at solution focused brief therapy.
Yeah, so I'm really thinking like the school told us to be collective, and then when you are out there in the field getting your hours for the state that you live in, that's when you that's when you narrow it down, and because they do teach us you need a foundation. They do teach us that, but I kind of so they did give us little sniblets of each modality out there. And I do use a lot of solution focus. I love the miracle question and I love scaling questions. So I'm always using those questions. And I like uplifting my clients.
I,
Like,
I love that. Yeah,
yeah,
I love that. But I would just be very careful with this idea. And also remember, your school had two completely different tasks,
yeah.
and they do one job far better than they do the other job. The reason why the schools approach this in a collective way
Mm-hmm.
is because they have two tasks to complete. Number one, I have to get Rory ready for the licensing exam.
Mm,
And for the licensing exam, Rory needs a lot of collective information. But
okay.
simultaneous to that, I have to get Rory ready for the clinical work.
Yeah.
And they do this job, the job getting you ready for the license exam, far better than they do getting you ready for the clinical work. So just remember, the reason they want me to have collective information is so I can pass the exam.
That is so, I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
That is why. Do you think your client gives a bleepity bleep whether or not you know that solution focused brief therapy was created by Steve DeShazer and Insu Kimberg and the team that they worked with in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the late 1970s. No,
No.
no. The state of California does because
Yeah.
they want to know that you were sitting in class and paying attention,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah,
Your client only wants to know, can you help me heal from the thing that has caused me a wound?
absolutely.
Being
Okay.
collective was only for the purposes of passing that exam. Now I got to go become a master.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you do? How do you want to learn, narrow it down to one modality, and then you still have to kind of be collective in order to pass the exam?
You do it in stages. Like I was collective for the time when in which I needed to be because I needed to demonstrate to the state of California that I was paying attention when I was in class. But then when I got out into the field, I need to hone in on, in essence, what kind of chef do I want to be?
Okay. Okay.
And and I gravitated towards solution focused brief therapy because of the way solution focused brief therapy overtly talked about hope. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I want to be that kind of chef. I want to be a solution focused brief therapy kind of a chef.
What did you was there another one that you liked too? Was there another theory that you
Uh, I liked I liked Rogerian therapy,
I don't never heard of that one.
Carl Rogers.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I liked Rogerian therapy, and I liked, well, I didn't like it, but I was being told you have to do CBT. But for me, it was a journey of authenticity. Like I remember watching a video of Carl Rogers, some old grainy black and white video that one of my professors had, and I liked some of the stuff that he was writing about. But I'm a black dude from the inner city, and I would watch this old white guy, and I would say I like his ideas. I had a friend at the time named Christina, and I was like, I like his ideas, but I can't sound like that
Yeah.
because like I got to find my own voice, and
Yeah, that's
and
true.
you have to find yours. You have to find your voice. I remember studying Insu Kimberg,
Mhm.
and Insu was famous for saying wow in her sessions. So Rory, if you said, so I started a new career after owning a hair salon, and I didn't even have a degree, so I had to start from scratch. And Sue would go, wow, how did you do that? And I was like, man, I can't talk like that. Like that's not authentically me. And
Yeah.
the journey for me was finding like what is authentically me, and then how do I lean into
I that just slapped me right here because I like
that?
emotionally focused therapy, but they really want you to talk real soft and sit real close to the client. And sometimes, can I put my hand on your leg? And
Oh
then
my God, no.
and I'm like, that's definitely not me. My voice is not very soft and quiet like that. And yeah, and I'm a challenger. I will challenge my client.
Yeah, and like and I want you to think about that. Now, nothing against emotionally focused therapy, but
Right.
if that doesn't fit my personality, I can't do that. Because you're asking me to be incongruent to who I am as a person.
Right. That way.
And right. So I cannot do that. Like I will go crazy trying to put myself in the box that I don't naturally fit in.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I liked it because I feel like I'm very in tune with my emotions. Like I can
Okay.
sit there and be like, I am feeling very frustrated right now. It's like I'm really in tune with how I feel. So I feel like that's why I was like going towards that because I'm like, oh, I am an emotional person. Um, and I'm a person that will tell someone how I feel about something. So I'm like, I resonate with that because I will tell someone how I feel and I know my emotions. But then I can't be super soft in the session room and talk real quiet and it's like you're babying your clients, and I'm definitely not that. Definitely not that.
Well, what I would say to that is don't be distracted by the title. Like
Okay.
all therapists have to be aware of their emotions, and emotion is a part of every session, regardless of what type of therapy you're doing. Because it's called emotionally focused therapy, don't think that it somehow attends to emotion any more or any less than any other approach. I
Okay.
think I think therapists get distracted. One time I was doing a session and this client said that their favorite thing to do is to read.
Hmm.
And I said, "What's your favorite kind of book?" They said, "Oh my gosh, I love reading adventure books." So I said, "What's your favorite adventure book?" And the client told me. And I said, "If you woke up tomorrow and you were the main character in an adventure book about your life, what would you hope was happening on this page of your book?" Which which is a version of the miracle. It's a future focused question. I've kind of like manipulated the miracle question to fit that this person liked to read. So I showed that video to a class of therapists, and one of the therapists said, "Are you sure this isn't narrative therapy?" And I was like, "Why? Why would you say that?" Because I'm talking about a book? Like because the word narrative is in the title, you think that I'm doing because I he mentioned a book? No, don't be distracted by the title of these approaches.
Okay.
People say, like, I love solution focused brief therapy because you get right in there and focus on a solution. No, I don't. You're being distracted by the title. What I do in solution focused brief therapy is I
Yeah.
focus on the outcome. Like,
Yeah.
don't be distracted by the title. So, you being an emotionally aware human is just going to make you a good therapist. It doesn't really matter what kind of approach you use.
Okay. Well, thank you for that because I always thought like solution focus was also you got to find the solution. We're not going to focus on the problem.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you for that because I was focusing on the name of the theory.
Yeah. No, no, no. No, no, no. Absolutely not. That is ridiculous.
Well, I'm learning a lot today. And CBT, I didn't really like CBT because it was more focused on thoughts. And I feel like our thoughts can be just thoughts sometimes. If we,
I no, I agree with that. I think I thought thoughts can be just thoughts for the same reason that I didn't like Freudian therapy.
mm,
And the reason I didn't like Freudian therapy is sometimes your dream can just be a dream.
yeah,
But
right.
but people are like, "Oh, I do dream work." I'm like, there have been times where the last thing I ate for the day was pumpkin seeds. And then I had a dream that a giant pumpkin grew in my stomach because I ate pumpkin seeds and then tried to kill me when it came. That's just because the last thing on my mind was a pumpkin. That don't mean, oh, Elliot, that means that your mom didn't love you enough when you were a kid. Man,
Right.
shut up. You don't know. It's just a random thing that the brain is doing randomly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was the same way. Same way.
Now that I'm going to be waiting for my associate's number, I choose not to work because we can work while waiting for our associate's number. We have to get live scanned and all that stuff. So I was just like, I'm just going to take the summer off. But I thought about wherever I go, what if they already have a theory that's already in place in their center or at their um, practice? That would be the theory that I would have to learn.
Correct.
So how do you, I guess I would want to sit with that question and ask myself, what would be a theory that I can do for the rest of my therapist life? Um,
Right.
but then and then I guess I can go out and look for those centers that practice that theory.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Correct. And you can go off and like create your own center or clinical practice so you can base it on your own work.
Yeah, that's my goal is to have my own practice, have my own practice. But I don't know how that works. I got to find that out, but I have to work under a supervisor for at least 2 years here
Right,
in
right,
California while I get
right,
my hours.
Just make sure as you sample other things, sample like I wouldn't mind you saying, Elliot, I want to go, Johnny and I want to go on an epic food tour. So we're going to spend a week in Italy and we're going to eat the most delicious Italian food. Then we're going to spend a week in Japan and we're going to eat the most amazing Japanese food. Then we're going to spend a week in England and we're going to eat the most amazing English food, which usually is their breakfast. England is not known for their food. Then we're gonna spend a week in South Africa and eat. Like, I'm totally cool with you sampling, but at the end of the sample, then you gotta ask yourself, all right, hey Johnny, of all of the foods we tried, which one do you think would be best for me to become a master chef of? And
Mm,
Johnny's gonna be like, you know, Rory, that smile was biggest in Italy. There was something about Italian food that you really liked. And then boom, right? So if you take a job at an agency and they practice something that's different from what you thought, just understand, I'm just sampling.
yeah,
And and like, do I love this? Do I get really excited to go to work in the morning? Do I get really excited to stay up all night learning more about this so I can be even better? If the answer is no, that's you're just in a temporary spot.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So Rory, any other questions?
Let's see. So you do solution focused therapy. Is there a difference between solution focused therapy and solution focused brief therapy?
No, it's just some people don't talk about the brief. They don't. I think some people just remove brief from the title, but no, they're the same thing.
Okay. I always thought there was the same, different. Um,
Nope, same thing.
so what do you like most about solution focus?
That I
What do
get
you,
to talk to people about their dreams.
so how do they heal? How do they heal from always talking about their dreams? Like if somebody was coming to you, like a couple, if they had communication problems, that's pretty much what all couples have. Communication, or let's say infidelity. Let's say one of the partners stepped out on their partner. How
Hmm.
do you focus on their dream as a couple to bring them back? I feel like that's what I struggle with.
Rory, how dare you wait until we're almost done with our time to ask me this profound of a question? What is wrong with you? This should have been the first thing you said because it would
I
take me the
know.
whole rest of the time to answer that. You
And
are,
by me saying that, I do that a lot even in my sessions. I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have asked that question. It's too close to the ending time.
well, you need to
I gotta
break
get
that
better
habit,
at
ma'am. You
that.
need to stop that. No, no, no. Um, because you have to understand there's a difference between healing and problem solving.
Hmm.
Um, and healing, I think, is the point of all therapy. So if the couple came to therapy after an incident of infidelity, then I know they came with an aim. I know they came with something that they want to achieve. I know they came wanting something in their future, which is the very definition of a dream. So if I were to say to them, in essence, like, what are you hoping happens as a result of us talking? And they say, like, we want to heal from this, we want to do this, we want to keep our relationship together, we want to be there for the kids. How would you notice yourselves doing that? The more they talk about the manifestation of that desired future, then the more healing takes place as they move in that direction. Like
That, oh my goodness,
that's
that's
how healing works.
yeah.
The reason why most people struggle to understand and certainly practice solution focused is because they haven't come to grips with the fact that problem solving and healing are not the same thing.
You're so true. That makes me think. While I was in school, I hit a really bad depression. I don't know what was going on, but I hit a really bad depression. So I climbed out of it on my own by not focusing on the depression.
That's
And
right.
yeah, I didn't focus on it. I was like, okay, I'm not going to focus on why am I sad. I'm just going to just make myself happy. Just, uh, be grateful for a lot of things. And the more I was doing that, one day I was like, oh my goodness, I don't have anxiety anymore. I don't feel sad anymore. And I realized I was not depressed anymore. So that makes
But
sense.
and here's the thing I want you to believe. I want you to like totally understand.
Okay.
If you're in a sad depression or in whatever difficulty it is, but I'll use depression since that's an example you used. If you're in like a really deep sad place and I show you a picture of your future in a way that you can buy into that future, you will immediately feel better, right? So let's say I knocked on your door when you're like you're in grad school, you're in the like most depressive state, and I knock on your door and I say, "Hi, my name's Elliot Connie. I'm from the future.
Mhm.
I'm from May of 2025, and I just want to show you this picture." And I hold up a picture, and it's you wearing a cap and gown at your graduation, holding your degree in one hand, and Johnny and your children are around you in that picture. And I say, this is the future if you can just hang on a bit. And the more you focus on this future, the more likely it becomes to be real. There's no mental space for depression or anxiety because I just showed you something that you're desirous of in the future. And you're going to be like, that's what I want. And the way the brain works is the more I focus on the thing that I want, the less I focus on this other stuff. And that's exactly how healing happens.
Mm, that is so true because that's what I did without even realizing that's what I was doing.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. That's
And
what I did. I had massive depression when I was growing up as a result of my difficult childhood. And the way that I got through it is I would constantly think about the future. Like, okay, I can't wait to get to college. Because in my head, college would be an opportunity for me to move out of my house and move into a dorm. So I'd be like, I can't wait to get to college so I can move into dorm and get away from my dad. So like, can't wait to get to college. And when I got to college, I was like, I can't wait to get a job so then I can make my own money. And so I was always thinking about the future. And that's what helped me deal with a very tumultuous childhood. And I do that now. Like I'm getting on a plane today to go to Los Angeles to do some really cool things. And it's like I just have a tendency to think about the future and not just the future, but the future in a very specific way in relation to how I want this future to look. And
mhm.
that makes me more resilient. That makes me more powerful. That makes me more strong. And it makes me more healed.
Yes, I love that. Absolutely love that. So I do can see how people can heal because I did it without even realizing I was doing it. Yeah,
100%. Yes,
yeah,
you did it.
yeah.
I love it. Well, Rory, it's been wonderful to talk to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you. It was nice meeting you, Elliot.
All right. Well, let's stay in touch.
I will. Thank you so much, Elliot. Have a
You're
great one.
very welcome. Very welcome. If you'd like to participate in the Therapy Checkup Show and receive free coaching for your mental health practice, email helen@elliottconnie.com for more information. I want to help you to become a better clinician so that you can help more clients achieve a better life.